Howdy, tubers. Alright, a little update, a walkthrough of the construction renovations. It's January, it's mid-January. In the last couple of weeks it's been exceedingly chilly. There hasn't been a whole lot of progress to report. However, over the last couple of long days, I did manage to get installed all the supports necessary for the new floor plywood to be put in. And I'm going to walk you through that right now. And as you can see, here is our floor structure. The rotten joists were replaced earlier, and that would be the ones with the bolts in them, and you can see them doubled up along in here. But what was missing, of course, is when I go to put the plywood back on, the original plywood is tongue and groove, and the reason you have to have a tongue and groove is so that when you encounter seams, like this section of plywood is tongue and groove right here, but as it comes over here, this support isn't normally here. The tongue and groove hold it so that when you apply weight between the joists, the wood doesn't separate and vibrate and cause all kinds of grief. Now when they put a floor together, there's no walls, there's no closets, there's no anything in the way, so they just basically make it one whole sheet of tongue and groove lapped together plywood. Well, since we had to cut up the plywood in order to pull the floor off to make visible and access to the floor joists, we basically had to build in new supports because I won't be able to put down tongue and groove because you kind of have to have access to the whole floor to be able to do that. So what has to happen is these supports right here were put in. This is a 2x4 section on its side with supports underneath, so that when I butt a small, this section of plywood will be just very small. There's a heating duct in here, so that's why I can't put any bridging like this here, because the duct, well, there you can see the duct. The duct extends and the register's there. So this is a 6x6 section that was nailed to the joist that allows the plywood to sit on this flush and support it completely, and then it'll come over here like this one. And then there's the support for this seam. This big section right here is too big for a regular 4x8 section of plywood, so this is 1.5 feet from the end, and so we'll have 1.5 feet and then 3.5 feet to here. So there'll be one section of plywood here, another section of plywood here. Their seam will meet in the middle, which is where those bridging sections are. And these bridging sections are nothing more than 2x10 pieces right here, but I've nailed 2x4 sections on the back, and that will allow for a very wide platform so that when you put the plywood down, it's supported on both sides of the sheet of plywood, and the seam won't have any give to it. So the bridging in between each of these sections, and we've got bridging here, and I did the same thing here with the 2x4, but the 2x4 is behind this 2x10 piece underneath this existing sheet of plywood, so you can't see it from here, although you can kind of see a little bit of the 2x4 that's on the other side of this piece of bridging. We have a ventilation duct here, so I can't put in a full bridge, and this is just a 2x4 section with blocks under it laid on its side again to support that. And we come all the way over here. This section in the bathroom, I will add structural bridging here. It won't have anything to do with sheets of plywood, but the toilet and the tub are over there, and I want the bathroom to be floor to be a little more rigid, so I'll probably put a piece of bridging here and a piece of bridging over there, and that will stiffen up the floor under the bathtub and the toilet, etc., etc. Now, the reason we're all doing this, or the reason I'm doing this, is because since we're working from the ground up and repairing all the damage from the water, the floor has to be ready to go before I can work on this exterior wall. And you can see the missing studs. You can see some of the rot there. Those studs will need to be replaced. But the major structural damage for this section, excuse me while I step out here and do my tightrope act, that up there on the ceiling needs to be replaced. You can kind of see how rotten that is, and that will have to come out. That wood will have to be replaced. So this whole wall section, pretty much, because I have to replace that, I will end up, and that is rotten wood, all those 2x4s down there are rotten. I will have to take all of this stucco that's on the outside and remove it and rebuild this wall. And of course, obviously, I can't put the wall in place until I replace all the plywood that goes to the edge of that rim joist. So I had to get the floor all ready, I had to get the floor all square before I could start on this wall. So now I can put down, I've got some plumbing and some other little ancillary things to do. But now I can drop a couple of temporary sheets of plywood. I can jack up the roof truss system and then remove that wall and replace all that bad lumber. And lo and behold, we're getting close to actually making, we're probably a little over 50% done with all the work that we've done so far. And that's just the structural stuff, obviously. Once I have all the structural stuff fixed, then the bathroom and this bedroom need to be reconstituted with drywall, fixtures, vanities, mirrors, and paint and all of that stuff. Anywho, that's your update. Thanks for tuning in. More to come later. Bye.